Minister, I welcome the motion from Fianna Fáil. I think it highlights the work and pay conditions of our defence forces that have been deteriorating over the years. We've been warning about this long-standing crisis and it hasn't been improving. Our defence forces are among the few state organisations that have a track record that we can be proud of. Sadly, the esteem that we hold them in does not translate into remuneration and work conditions that signify that the state actually respects and values their work. According to the CSO figures, the Defence Forces are the lowest paid workers in the public service. I, for one, don't understand why that's the case, Minister. They work sometimes punishingly long hours in unenviable conditions and get very little in return. And as Deputy Dáil highlighted here recently, a member of the Defence Forces who had just returned from a deployment on Operation Sophia said he was working a 12-hour day at sea, 7 days a week, with 2 or 3 24-hour duties thrown in. He worked approximately 80 hours a week for an extra €125 per week on top of his basic salary of $435. That's a total of $560 for a 40-hour week with 40 hours overtime. It's little wonder that we hear about 50 sailors sleeping on board ships on their time off because they can't afford rents in Cork due to the housing crisis. Now, 85% of our defence forces earn less than the average industrial wage, and it looks like they don't have much to look forward to coming out of the Public Sector Pay Commission. Leaks have suggested that the average soldier could be looking at a 1% pay increase. Turnover inside the organisation is at unsustainable levels, and well you know it, Minister, with loads of experienced and highly trained members leaving on a regular basis. All this while millions extra has been spent on equipment and is set to increase much further in the coming years as a result of us joining PESCO, which unfortunately Fianna Fáil signed up to as well. The crisis in retention and recruitment has not just pay at its root. There have been reports of civilians in the Department of Defence treating the general staff of the Defence Forces with contempt. There's also the lack of moral justification for some recent deployments. Take Operation Sophia in the Golan, for example. In the Golan Heights, our defence forces have literally sat and watched the Israeli defence forces give air and artillery support to Al-Qaeda forces in Syria, which have caused untold chaos in the region. While they repeatedly say that the Golan will never be returned, which was originally the point of the UN mission. Our role in the Mediterranean, which you, Minister, acknowledged in here, in its latest form was a military mission, and it was no longer just a search and rescue, but about sending desperate people back to the place they desperately wanted to escape from. Now we are sending 12 extra defence forces to Mali to give support to the French in their neo-colonial war to protect uranium, oil and gold interests in the region. These are under threat by the groups coming down from fighting in the north of the continent, recruiting among the desperately poor, from the desperately poor in the north of the Sahel region. If we really cared about peace in this region, we'd stop extracting revenue from it by being a tax haven for extractive global corporations, and we would oppose Western intervention wars that are really the source of the Mali conflict. And likewise, stop Shannon being used as a US military base to create untold destruction in other countries, which doesn't really make any sense at all. Minister, I heard your opening statement. I heard the Taoiseach today when he was replying to Seamus Healy, and I don't accept your arguments. They talk about, oh look, there's only so much money to go around. And yeah, there is only so much money to go around. But Minister, I'm not so old, and God knows I'm older than most of you in here, but I remember when your party was regarded as the ones that were most prudent with money. And the Taoiseach talked about today the necessity to be prudent with money. But listen, you're the same government that has stood over the Children's Hospital. And I have argued on 8 occasions in here why you could save yourselves at minimum $500 million by going back to the drawing board and renegotiating the contract, changing the form of contract. You don't even know where it's going to end up at the moment. You don't even know how much it's going to cost you because the contract is wrong. And you have the option of redoing it. It's wrong. You're wasting all that money and you don't want to give the Defence Forces a proper wage. It doesn't make any sense, Minister. It doesn't add up. We're not even talking about the $3 billion for broadband. not to mention what's gone on in Naman. No one wants to know about Naman here. They've cost the state about 20 billion. But oh no, it'll go away in time, it'll go away. Asher, it's history now. The amount of money that's been wasted by this government is frightening. And we're expecting defence forces to work for less than the rest of us. How many people in this country that work for the state are getting as little as the defence forces? Because, Minister, you can defend what you are doing till the cows come home, but no one is explaining to me why they are paid less than everybody else. It doesn't make any sense. We all say we're proud of them. We all think they do wonderful work, and they're a great credit to the country. And we pay them the least? Where is the explanation for it? Because I'm still not hearing it, Minister. Thanks.